public record. So when school board members make decisions, they need to be representing their constituents or the public. And the only way to document the way the public feels, and that is counter to the decisions the board is making, is by having the legal public record reflect the feelings of the constituents. Now, emails can be part of the legal public record if they're grammar requested. But if, for example, we wanted to recall a board member, or we're running elections, or let's say it's a split vote, or there's something happens and there's some legal issues, right? What they do is they don't go to the emails, they go to the meetings, and they look at the public comment, and they see if the public spoke out, and they see what the public said, and they count up. This is why when we go to these meetings, we have these public comment cards, and they count how many people were for and how many people were against in the comment cards, because legally that has weight. Each of those public comments carries legal weight, and that because the only weight that's used, and it's typically in the written summation. It's not necessarily the verbal. They usually don't use the verbal recordings. They use the minutes of meetings. Sometimes they'll use the audio or the video recording, but it's usually the minutes of the meeting. So it's even really beneficial to have your public comment that you give verbally and to provide a copy of it to the gal who's there at the meeting and say, here's my written public, if it's written out, here's my written public statements, to make sure it's included in the record. Because it's that record that's important, and that we legally document all of these things. So if we come around next year and they're like, we're going to do hybrid again, we can say, whoa. We gave public comment. Go look at the legal record. This many parents spoke out. We had this many people come to meetings. That's why you sign in to a meeting. You sign into a meeting, and that becomes part of the legal record of the meeting. This is the way it is for all these meetings. Your city council meetings, your school board meetings, legislative hearings, all of it. It's about creating a legal public record of what what the constituents believe and feel. So we do this in South Weber City, where we have people come and you sign in, and if it's an important meeting, you say we want lots of people there, because that reflects in the public record that when this decision was made, there were 100 people there. Well, that shows there's a lot of weight behind that decision, and if anything ever comes up again, they have to go back and review the public record on that decision. So that's just some basic background on why giving public comment in a meeting is valuable and important and needs to be done, especially when we're dealing with issues that are controversial or are big votes or have a lot of weight in decision making in our school district. It's why they have a public hearing. So a public hearing is required by law on certain issues. For example, when they adopt a curriculum policy, a primary curriculum policy, or a comprehensive sex education policy, they have to have a public hearing. And that's because they have to have, before they adopt the policy, they have to have legal documentation that the public had a chance to voice their opinion on the curriculum. So that's just a little background about it. But this is what a lot of people don't understand about public comment, is why that is important. So I sent an email. And you don't need a lot of public comment. They only allow 18 minutes, but we need to have some public comment at every meeting for as long as the issue goes on, so that you can go back and they can legally document that citizens were concerned about this issue over and over and over and over and over again. So you ever have to litigate or ever have to go to court or ever have to deal with this issue again, you have that legal record. You can give them materials. So, for example, Rachel made her comment, and she had a memo that went with her comment that had the legal things on it. And in her public comment, she says, I have copies of this legal wording, this legalese, that I have one for each of you to review. And then after the comment, President Robison had her bring him her documents, and then they were passed out to everyone. And then they become part of the public record. And then it's notified that they were given this memo or this document. So you can put that and you can do that in your public comment. So if you have 3 minutes, but what you need to share is 10 minutes worth of material, summarize your 3 minutes, create a memo, and then give them the material. That is a great way to do public comment, especially for something like what we were doing, where we were bringing legal information. So now we know they've seen the legal argument from Iron County. They all have it. They all have to read it because it's public comment. And we know that happened, and it's on the public record that took place. Every school board has a different procedure and policy. And they do not have to allow public comment. So they have to require public hearings at certain points legally by law, but they do not have to require public comment. So each school board will have to go into their codes, and the codes for public meetings will be on the websites, and then you can research that, and so that can be part of the team. Whoever's going to help with school board meetings will want to go research the codes for their school district and find out the procedure, find out the policy. And it's very important to be respectful of the rules and respectful of the codes, because public comment in a public meeting is a courtesy to citizens. It should be required by law to allow it at every meeting, but it is a courtesy, so there's a level of respect you do need to show so that you can continue to have public comment, and that's a respected thing. This is why you needed someone who's checking the agenda and then can tell people whether they can what they can do. So last night, the agenda, they had a closed meeting right after the session. So you can't stay because you have to leave because they have a closed meeting. So I like to stay the whole meeting to hear and listen and take notes. But those who came to give public comment, I just let them know. I'm like, after you give your public comment, you can leave because there's no chance to visit with them after because it's a closed meeting. So that is why you have someone check the agenda and know it's on the agenda and have advance notice of what the agenda is covering. The other reason we check the agendas is, like Nicole said, we found out they were doing curriculum review, and then we could look at it in advance and prepare public comment for the item they're talking about on the agenda. They will not address any public comment if it's not on the agenda. So it's really good to have your public comment match the agenda, because then they can actually address something that was said in a public comment in the meeting, because they can discuss it on an agenda. If what's discussed in public comment is not on the agenda, they cannot even legally talk about it. They can't address it at all. So that's why it's good to know what your agenda is. Also very important to look your representatives in the eyes and in the face and know that they know and they heard you, and that they are now accountable for their decision because you know they know and you know they heard you. And that's something very important and very powerful in that. So when they decide not to do what they've said, they're accountable for that decision because it was on public record, and you know, they know, and they still chose not to do the right thing. And that is something very powerful in that, and doing that in person, in public, looking representatives in the eyes and telling them that. And it's a very, very rewarding experience and very, very important thing to do.